Hello. Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. I have had some audio issues this evening already, and during the stream is about to begin bit, as I sort of let the stream warm up, as it were, my audio was on. Thankfully, I was not doing anything untoward that can be proved. Hello and welcome to Performance Check. My name is Rob, and this is the next edition of the Storyteller stream that I've been hosting here on Twitch, which follows the story of the epic 1 to 20 level campaign in Dungeons & Dragons called Beyond the Veil. I'm not sure how long this one is going to be. I don't expect it's going to be as long as the last two, because lots of little bits happened in the time where we're at in the campaign tale at this point, and that'll become the reasons will be clear in time. I'm just checking that everything is okay with my OBS. It was a very distracting start to the stream. I've not had a seamless beginning yet, so hopefully. Hopefully, this is the last one where I'm like, is it working? Can you hear me when I don't want you to hear me? Can you not hear me when I want you to hear me? Anyway, just a very brief recap on where we got to last time. Our heroes, who now go by the moniker The Outlanders, had delved into the Tomb of the Founders. It was on the wish of Alden, the factotum, played by Mike. The factotum wanted to discover a hidden weapon that was buried beneath landfall called Urgamax, the final judgment. And this, he hopes, will be the weapon that will be able to help him defend himself against an extraplanetary threat that he bargained with to save him and his brother's life, but there is a cost to that, a timely cost that when a certain number of years have passed, his soul will then belong to them. Very traditional Faustian kind of bargain occurred. And Alden, being a factotum, he's a jack of all trades and a master of none, and he fancies himself a little bit of an escape artist. And intends to use the power of this blade to defend himself against whatever comes after him when that time is up. They fought their way through the Tomb of the Founders. There was a moment where we had a very Raiders of the Lost Ark moment where Boulder chased down Alden at one point when he was trapped, which was good fun. And they navigated all different kinds of traps and battled various entities that protect the Tomb of the Founders. There were shield guardians. There were the hideous skin kites, which are just the worst. And they fought all the way through that to reach the Tomb of the Founders, which was guarded by about 30 sleeping undead that rose when they attempted to take Urgamax from the tomb of Arthas the Explorer, the last wielder of Urgamax, the final judgment. They took the blade and they suddenly realised, or rather Alden suddenly realised, that Arthas the Explorer, this ancient intrepid adventurer, bore the same mark as he did. When Alden made this pact, a terrible fang burn mark came across his chest. And he looks upon this long dead individual, this husk, this skeleton, and sees that this same mark is burned upon its rotted carcass to the very bone. There is a battle where Arthas, the explorer, rose from the grave and did battle. Urgamax, in his hand, appears to be shattered. It looks like it was a great sword, but like 2/3 of it are smashed off and actually still lie in the crypt. But when this undead Arthas the Explorer wielded this blade, sort of like a spectral blade, made up the part that was missing. And they did battle, and to everyone's horror, including my own. Alden went toe-to-toe against Arthas the Explorer, this undead, almost Death Knight. Not quite in level, but almost Death Knight. Did battle, and Alden was knocked to the ground, and then this dread spectral sword pierced his chest, killing him. Seemingly killing him. And this is where we're going to pick up, and I've been trying to do a little bit of a reading every time I start the Storyteller stream. And I actually, by complete chance, complete luck, found the section that I'd written about Urgamax. Bits of it are a little bit changed, and you will notice if you stick with each one of these streams, you'll notice there may be the odd change here and there. But for the most part, this was like the initial background of the sword. As last time, I will say also before I begin, once again, I will not be offended if you have this on in the background and are doing other things. I'm mainly going to be talking, but there will be the odd instance where I bring up images and maps on screen, and when I do so, I will bring your attention to it. I just realised I've left the window open, right, because it's a very warm day, a very warm evening, and there is a very, very loud bird outside. I don't know if you can hear. It immediately stopped. The moment I stopped speaking, it immediately stopped. If it keeps making that noise, I will close the window and I will just slowly bake. But for now, yeah. Like I say, I will draw your attention to the screen if there are any images for me to share with you. Otherwise, feel free just to listen to this. Listen to my ramblings as we continue the epic tale beyond the veil. And I shall go to my campaign notes. Let's see where we're at. Urgamax. Legend tells that Arthas, the founder, brought Urgamax across the sea to the lost land of Vayrilion. The weapon is known as the Final Judgement, the Godfang, and many other names. Most believe Arthas was beckoned across the sea by the call of destiny. None but a few know that Arthas was crusading to stop a vast threat from coming to Mainrealm. He hunted for secrets and beheld a vision of a great terror coming from across the sea. He defied the orders of gods not to go and led a secret invasion. Knowing he faced insurmountable odds, he called on dark powers, for the gods would no longer aid him in his defiance. But Vecna would. Vecna gave Arthas the final judgment to smite the enemies of this reality. A fallen foe's soul or essence is taken in by the sword, so that its wielder and the blade itself can judge them before banishing them onto another reality, exiling them from the material plane. Urgamax was a weapon forged long ago by Vecna in a response to the Sword of Cass. For those of you who don't know, I've just realised I haven't actually explained what the Sword of Cass is. The Sword of Cass was the weapon wielded by Vecna's primary lieutenant, Cass, who was actually the one who betrayed him, who I'm pretty sure cut off his hand and gouged out his eye. And the Sword of Cass is now this legendary blade that has been wielded by other rather prominent foes in the Dungeons and Dragons mythos. But Urgamax is effectively the weapon that came afterwards, which was an answer to the Sword of Cass, as it were, the yin to its yang. Yeah, so Urgamax was a weapon forged long ago by Vecna in response to the Sword of Cass, the blade that soared to his original destruction. He forged it by claiming the soul of a powerful dragon. He had bestowed it to many champions throughout time until it came to the hands of Arthas. Vecna commanded that he take the blade and travel east to strike out at the Raven Queen. After years of searching, Arthas had found a way inside the Shadowfell, infiltrated the Fortress of Memories, and drove Urgamax deep into the Raven Queen's mind. Arthas was marked with the symbol of the Godfang as soon as he took up this blade, and the brand began to twist into the shape of a weapon, the more he had attuned with the weapon. Anyone wielding this weapon can change its form, to any weapon that they are trained or suited to use. So, for example, in the hands of a barbarian, Urgamax would transform into a great axe. In the hands of a swashbuckler, it would change into a deadly rapier. And that's all I've got on it. So that's effectively what the rough backstory of Urgamax was. And it was important to me that this weapon have like a certain amount of significance, because it was effectively the personal quest of Mike's character. But we don't want to make it as simple as that. And as he saw right moments before his death, he realised that Urgamax had been shattered. And there was very much hints of the fact that when Urgamax had been plunged into the mind of the Raven Queen, that had been the thing that had detonated the blade into 3 different shards. When Arthas was using the blade, it was a great sword. But since it had been shattered, it wasn't able to change into different weapons anymore. It was just the hilt of a great sword. But then we cut back to where we are now, and Alden is struck down by Arthas the Explorer, Arthas the Remnant, Arthas the Death Knight, and Karlas Ungalida the Samurai, and Ashbourne Briar the Druid. Both look on in horror. They see their friend be knocked to the ground and mortally killed. And they let out a great howl and charge the terrible being, and in a desperate battle they lock blades with him. Now you might have noticed me say that the blade, when used correctly, can absorb souls, and then the wielder and the blade can decide whether they banish that soul from the material plane. It's effectively a soul drinker. There's a few different weapons in the D&D sort of magic items, mythos things that drink souls, and this was one of them. And this is effectively what happened to Alden as he was slain. It was almost like a circuit was being connected, and whilst they're continuing to battle this undead Arthas, Alden is seeing the circuit get connected and realising that a circle has come full. He is now the new wielder of Urgamax, and he was being judged by the blade to see whether he was worthy of taking it up or not. Bears the same mark as Arthas, and as Karlas and Ashbourne do battle with this thing, Alden wakes up and is able, with his friends, to push back the undead horror and slay it and bring it down and destroy it. Alden is then able to claim Urgamax. He takes up the blade and is a little bit despondent. He realises he's come all this way to find that this legendary blade is in fact a blade in 3 pieces. A blade that really is a shadow of its former self. The other 2 are looking at Alden in, as you can imagine, abject horror, because this guy just got impaled in front of them and now walks among them once again. They are horrified. They're terrified. Well, they're not actually. they're more like, wow, that was lucky. How did that happen? And Alden has kind of been a bit shady about the background of Urgamax until this point, and it is now that they demand an answer. And finally he tells them. Let's have a sip. Just the one beer this evening, friends. Another Brewdog Punk IPA. Not sponsored. Wish I was. So they're able to loot the Tomb of the Founders, and they find some pretty cool stuff along the way, and they find lots of magical items that were left to be buried with the dead, you know, so that they can take on those possessions of the afterlife, that kind of thing. So naturally they plunder it all, because they're the first people to actually infiltrate the Tomb of the Founders successfully, because it is incredibly dangerous. Do I still have the Tomb of the Founders on here? Let's see, I do. There we are. So, Tomb of the Founders was there. There are so many different layers on this OBS right now. Can I please just change the size of it? That'd be ideal. Thank you. There we go. There we are. So they fought in that big area at the very top of the map there, and they were sort of on that plinth when the fatal moment happened and the dramatic sort of battle occurred. And then they realised that they needed to get out of there. And so they did. Now, they actually left a different way, and I'm actually just trying to spot where it is. There is another way out of this tomb. The thing is, some of the maps that I was taking screenshots of in Roll20, some of their assets, because they've been on Roll20 for a while, sometimes I'll have deleted assets from the memory of my Roll20 account, so some assets just disappear from maps. So there was definitely another staircase in there. But as you might recall from the last stream, they broke into the Tomb of the Founders through some sewers in the Undercity of Landfall. And they actually decided that they were going to leave the tomb through the actual entrance that leads up into the castle, because they thought, well, we've not been in Castle Rookspire, which is the main fortification of Landfall, which this tomb is beneath. Let's go up there and see what it's like. And they do. And oh man, I wish I'd remembered to get an image of this. Actually, I knew there was one thing that I was missing, and I'm not going to go into Roll20 and screenshot and waste all that time doing that. So I'll just explain. They come out and they find themselves. They come out of this great stone stairway, and they find themselves basically slap bang in the middle of Castle Rookspire, clearly trespassing in Dominion territory. This castle is very heavily guarded by the very best of the Dominion Legion, and they realise, oh wow, that there was a very good reason why. Or rather, it was a good thing that they'd gone in the other way and not tried to infiltrate the castle just to get in here. And I remember there being a pretty cool encounter within the castle, because before they turned, they were actually in sort of in a graveyard within the walls of the castle, and the crypt of the Tomb of the Founders is a staircase that leads beneath that graveyard. So they're in this graveyard, which has a number of different graves of the very first travellers that came across the sea from Main Realm to Verilium. And they're sort of just investigating, and all of a sudden this really weird, peculiar guy in ragged robes sort of like limps out from behind one of the tombs. And it makes them jump and think, oh my goodness, what on earth? And he was all like, I see that you are exploring where you should not be exploring. Like, kind of being a little bit weird. And they're like, who are you? And he's like, I am the gravekeeper. I tend to the dead here. And they're like, that's very strange. They say, we'll just mind how we go. And basically what that guy was is he was a revenant that I decided to plant there, who had sort of like an ancient knowledge of the castle, who had been there when the castle had initially been founded and built atop the elven ruins that the Dominion had discovered there. And he was going to be someone for them to sort of like learn more about the castle, and he kind of said to them, well, it is very interesting, isn't it, that you are the first people to discover a way from the catacombs of the old elven kingdom all the way up to Castle Rookspire. He's basically saying, isn't it interesting that you're the first people in many, many years to learn that there is a secret way in and out of the castle? And they're like, ah, that is interesting information. Bye. They don't learn anything else. Like, I swear to God, I'm not going to go look for it now, but I had like loads of different like bits of lore of the castle and things that they can find within if they wanted to try and sneak back here another time. They're like, oh, that's interesting. Bye. And off they went. Which was pretty funny. And, you know, they decided that they wanted to go elsewhere. They had other stuff to do, and that's exactly what they did. They then turned tail and they left. They went all the way back through the Tomb of the Founders, back through the sewers, and they did actually go and report to Zord of Skullrus, who is the Drow leader of the criminal underworld, the Undercity. And they kind of explained to her about what they found there, and she said, "Good, I will send my forces there to secure the area." And but they kind of alluded to the fact that it was heavily watched, and that, you know, you shouldn't really go through the tomb because there are still dangers there. The traps reset, which is true. The traps did reset. The rolling boulder trap, and also, we kind of cleared the place out, and she wasn't particularly happy about that, but she wasn't in much of a position to argue with them. They'd helped her out at one point, and she'd given them the information, so they were sort of even Stevens, and they said, well, listen, we're going to come back sometime, and we're probably going to need your help again. You'll probably need our help again, so let's just stay on good terms for now. You let us go, and we'll just mind our own business. And it was agreed, but regardless, she still sent people to go and follow up on what they had found there. And that was where we left Sword of Skullrus for the time being. And now I'm going to consult my notes because I would like to make sure I know where we are. So, let's see. Tomb of the Founders was... Let's see what number of session it was. That was session 7, I think? Or 7 or 8? 7 and 8, yeah. So this next session, as they were leaving, they decided that they wanted to explore a bit more of the city, and they did. They went back through Landfall and they restocked on some of their supplies. They did the usual thing, really. They restocked on potions. They got all the equipment that they needed, and they were they had their guard down a little bit. I think they were just deciding that this was the time for them to relax a little bit. And all of a sudden, they looked to the Fey trees. These trees that grow from one plane of reality into the next. They grow from the Feywild out into the material plane. And they see that the leaves have begun to fall. And Nikirian's promise was that by the fall of autumn's leaves, or I always forget what he exactly said, the line. Let's see if I can find it. And let's see if I can actually remember it this time. Here we are. That's it. May you set your sails forth, and let the eastern wind carry you across the sea from whence you came. For by the fall of the first leaves of autumn, I shall reclaim the lands you took from our people. And it's that sort of those words that are echoing in their mind when they see the leaf fall, and they suddenly realise that they are arguably in the most precarious location of this particular part of the setting. And they decide to look to the map. And that's what we shall do too. So they look to the map, and oh my god, there's so many different layers on here. Just let me select that. Thank you. Let's fit that to screen. There we go. So they're in Landfall, which is in the very centre. And they decide that they're going to retrace their steps, and they're going to head back to the Circle of Shepherds, because they know that... That's right, they knew that Beda, who was the big giant panther, the druid who decided to remain in the form of a giant panther, because why wouldn't you? They decided that they were going to head back to him to learn of what the outcome had been with their discussions with the Eversworn, and what had happened since that time. Basically, the Eversworn, if you don't remember, the Eversworn were the elite forces of the Eladrin that followed Nekirian, the Lord of Autumn. And Nekirian had said to the Circular Shepherd, these elven druids, they said, join us. We want to serve nature just as much as you do. We just want to reclaim our home. And as elven kind, you should want to do that as well. So, this is what's going to happen. We are going to attack Landfall. We are going to oust humanity from this place, this sacred place of elves and Eladrin. And you're going to help us. And the Circle of Shepherds, who have completely sworn off violence, had basically said, nope. We agree that we do not like that humanity are sort of encroaching on the borders of the Ainalar and the Great Forest. But we don't want to kill people. And basically the Eversworn have been encamped just outside of the Circle of Shepherds to basically start putting pressure on them. And as you may recall, our Outlander friends had gone to confront the Eversworn at their camp and had been met with fierce resistance. They had battled the Eversworn. They completely underestimated what they were going up against. Something that I really enjoy doing as a Dungeon Master is making sure that there are threats in the world that just aren't for you. There are some people that you can come across that are beyond your capabilities, at least at the beginning of the game or the beginning of the campaign. And that they sort of act as like living milestones in terms of particularly if it's like a combat based game, which this one is in quite a lot of respects. There's quite a lot of combat that happens in it, so you get to see your progress as a character. Oh, we didn't used to be able to beat the Eversworn at level 5, but now we're level 10, so on. We can give them we're now a threat to them or whatever. Anyway, all that to say, they had met the Eversworn as I discussed in the last stream and didn't come out particularly well. Karlas got brought down by 1. Yeah, and basically, before they went off into the wilds, because they just decided they were just going to go and do a bit of exploring, I think, they decided, listen, we are no friends of the Dominion. We know that the Dominion aren't looked at particularly favourably in these lands. Let's just go. We don't owe them anything. And this was something that they always sort of stuck to, which I was very, very pleased by, and I was impressed by. They were kind of like, no. We don't like the Dominion, and while they offer us lots of opportunity for battle and for gold and for reward, we don't really want to be a part of them. And I was like, fair play, you know. But they didn't really want to be a part of with Nekirian either. They kind of want us to remain neutral. I'm like, that's okay. They're sort of seeing where the land lies, so they decide that they're going to go off and do their own thing. But on their journey, as I mentioned, all that to say, Ashbourne Briar, the druid, wants to go and check on them because he thinks, well, what if, heaven forbid, that Nekirian goes back and sees that an attack has been made from the Circle of Shepherds at the Eversworn. What's going to happen there? They say, well, we'll happily come with you, but we're just going to keep travelling north, I think, as well. No, that's what it was. Ashbourne said to them, you keep going, I'll catch up to you, because as a druid, and now he's leveled up a few times, he can wild shape. And I believe he wild shaped into a giant owl. In fact, that was the same giant owl I think he turned into when he stopped Karlas falling into the abyss whilst they were in the Skycleave dungeon, I think. Anyway, they realised they only needed just to check up on them and get a bit of information, so Ashbourne decided to go off on his own and talk with the Circle of Shepherds while Alden and Karlas continue north. And two rather crucial things happened next, which was quite fun, and it enabled me to jump back and forth. It was really fun to sort of have the narrative bounce back and forth between the two viewpoints. Have a drink. They, first of all, with Ashbourne and with Carlas, they continued north, and they saw that the outlying towns that sort of surround the landfall area, the towns that provide lumber, the agricultural sort of plains, you know, even though you leave the city, there's miles and miles of different places that, you know, serve landfall and keep that city fed and stocked and things like that. And they come across a lumber settlement, and that lumber settlement is under attack. And they discover a chimera. In fact, not just one chimera, 3 chimeras are circling above this lumber settlement and are just attacking it, like just swooping down and savaging villagers. And they don't appear to be doing it for prey. Like, they're not carrying people off to their nests to devour. No, they are just targeting people one by one and swooping down and annihilating them. Chimeras, for those of you who don't know, are winged beasts. They have the head, or 3 heads. They well, 4. In some iterations, it's 4 heads. Let me explain. The head of a goat, the head of a lion, and the head of a dragon. And that dragon can be a different kind of dragon. It could be a red dragon or a blue dragon that has a different kind of breath weapon. So those 3 front-facing, devastating weapons, and on the back there is a serpent, sometimes serpent's tail, sometimes an actual serpent with a serpent head off the back. I can't remember which way around it was, or if it was just a sting or something. I'm not sure about the 3.5 monster manual. Anyway, all that to say, they are under attack from manticores. Oh my god. And it's the first time we have a combat where it is involving just 2 of the Outlanders, whilst Ashbourne is off checking on the circle of shepherds. It was a pretty immense battle, and Carlos Angalida, the samurai, is able to show once again why he is fast becoming the most terrifying warrior the land of Aurelian has seen, short of perhaps the Lord of Autumn himself. He carves through these chimera like a hot knife through people, as the Joker would say. And it is devastating, but one of these chimera has got its sights fixed upon Alden, the factotum, and it just won't leave him alone. And Alden is throwing every trick in the book at him. He's got like the odd scroll that he will cast and send up magic missiles. He has, I think he had like throwing knives that he was throwing in it at one point, and this thing was just batting off every attack, coming after this factotum like there was no tomorrow. And then Alden drew upon his last sort of idea that he had before really just falling into just sort of out-and-out attack with this beast, which he would totally lose because it's much more powerful than him. You may remember in a stream previously, I described a few of the magic items that they discovered, and one of those items was a spell storing ring. It was a ring that you can have any spellcaster. It's very powerful if you think about it. Any spellcaster can put a spell into this ring up to a certain level. I think it was up to a level 3 spell, this one. So any spell up to 3rd level can be stored in this ring and activated by anyone who isn't even a caster. I think it just required a very low check to actually have it activate. Anyway, that's the last thing that Alden has in his book of tricks. This spell storing ring, which has a fireball in it. And he waits for the last second for this chimera to swoop around. And it's kind of like Maximus in Gladiator, you know, where like he has the sword, like when they're about to execute him and he's standing there holding his ground as the horseman rides at him or whatever. It's kind of like that, but imagine a chimera up in the sky, its wings just completely flat like a bird of prey zooming towards Alden. He gets ready, he feigns his sword in his left hand here, his spell ring here, and he switches stance at the last minute and just full on punches the Chimera directly in its lion face and detonates the ring at the same time, blasting the Chimera's face literally off. Face off. It was amazing. Didn't kill the Chimera, it just pissed it off. But it pissed it off to the point that it realised its other companions had been slain by the fearless Carla Sunglider. It decided to fly away. And Oldham was devastated. He wanted to kill that thing so badly. You know, when you're in a fight in D&D and you're like, you lock into one thing, you're like, no, it's you and me to the end. One of us is dying today. It was kind of that thing. But it's sadly for Oldham, creatures aren't stupid. Like I always question when you're in fights in D&D and there's a creature that will just sit there to the end and then just die. Like, you know, creatures want to live as badly as adventurers do. So anyway, the Chimera is banished and it flies away. Its head still aflame. The lion's mane now charred and burned away as it flies off. Yeah, they were victorious. Meanwhile, back at the Circle of Shepherds. I thought I had the Circle of Shepherds still here. I thought I had the Circle of Shepherds still here. I don't. That is a shame. I got rid of it. Probably because of all the different things I have on OBS at the same moment. That's a shame. Oh well. If you remember the Circle of Shepherds, great stones surround a towering fay tree. And it is there that Ashbourne in owl form arrives. He is able to book it over there super fast with his flight speed, and he realizes something immediately is wrong. There are elves in druidic garb slain. One has clearly bled to death leaning against one of the great rocks that surround the tree, and he flies down and he sees a rather wounded looking giant panther. Beda, the leader of the Circle of Shepherds, is surrounded by dead Eversworn, and Ashbourne just can't believe it. They went and they started a fight with the Eversworn, and the Eversworn decided that they were going to retaliate in kind in the folly of battle, in the folly of war, they had attacked and killed most of the druids. Beda, one of the few to survive, was there. He explained to Ashbourne that he had sent the other druids away to scatter and to send the word throughout the rest of Vayrilion, through the great forest of the Ainullar, of the deeds of Nikirian, and that he will really attack his own to make a point. If you're not with him, you're against him, that kind of thing. They look up and they once again see that autumn leaves are now falling like snow from the fay trees. Autumn is truly arrived, and it seems that Nikirian is true to his promise. And it is Nikirian they see as they each turn around. Nikirian himself has arrived, and Ashbourne looks on in horror as it's him and Beda confronting the most powerful entity in this realm. And it's there. I'm going to take a very short break, and I'll be back in about 2 minutes. Don't go away! If I know how to do the thing. There we are. Don't go away! And welcome back. I was just having a quick look at some of the notes for what had occurred, and there are actually a number of outcomes that I had actually sort of noted down that could be possible things that had happened at the Circle of Shepherds while they'd been away. They all basically are the same versions of different, I can't talk. What am I trying to say? They're very similar to what I just mentioned just now. But it is interesting. Like, I wanted to make sure that it was really down to what the players had done and sort of affected what was actually going to happen when they go back. And the fact that they'd gone to try and fight the Eversworn, it kind of like looked to the Eversworn, or rather it looked to Nakirian, that the Circle of Shepherds had basically got some adventurers to try and fight their battle for them. So he decided to repay them in kind. But there were other options that could have happened. For example, on the argument that the Dominion had felled the Faeries, if they'd gone in different ways, they would have seen that the Dominion had actually started cutting down these sacred trees, sacred for the Eladrin, these trees. They would have seen the Dominion had cut some of them down, which would have meant that Beda, the leader of the Circle of Shepherds, would then begrudgingly swear fealty to Nakirian. So those druids would then become effectively another antagonist against the Society of Humanity in this world. High Adventurer is here, the Old Eel himself. Alright there, lads, what's going on? It's an Old Ways player, I think. I don't know. I'm guessing so. The Old Eel is in reference to a character that I used to play called the Eel Knight, Morse Eddy himself, from the setting A Song of Ice and Fire, aka A Game of Thrones. Looking forward to playing that game again very soon. Hopefully soon. Good to see you, High Adventurer. Thanks for dropping by. So let's see. Yeah, so anyway, that didn't happen. What actually happened was, as I explained, Nakirian ordered the Eversworn to teach the Circle of Shepherds a bit of a lesson. And it is then as Ashbourne has arrived in owl form that, Nakirian has arrived. And he simply says something along the lines of, I await your answer, Beda. It is not too late. You can still swear fealty to the Court of Seasons. You can still swear fealty to your Lord of Autumn. And Beda basically says, fuck off. You've just killed a bunch of my druids. There is no way we are swearing fealty to you. And Ashbourne says, I'm going to help you. We can do this. If we both work together, perhaps there's a way we can defeat him. And Beda, the big panther, looks at him and he says, this foe is beyond you. Or words to that effect, because it is absolutely true. Nakirian is the lead antagonist of this story, and I'm afraid they're just not at that stage where they're going to be able to fight them, let alone one of the Outlanders. Ashbourne is not up to the task of beating Nakirian, at least not today. And he says, no, go and tell the story of what's happened here. Tell them the Lord of Autumn is deaf to reason. Ashbourne says, we're coming back for you. We're coming back for you. And he takes flight in owl form, just as Nakirian steps forth, drawing a brilliant blade. And Beda sort of launches at him, and that's sort of like the last thing that Ashbourne sees as he takes flight and leaves Beda and Nakirian to their deathly battle within the Circle of Shepherds. Ashbourne shoots across the landscape and arrives to where Ashbourne to where Alden and Carlas are sitting upon the field of victory. They've sort of like stripped the bodies of the manticores. Sorry, not the manticores, the chimeras. Were they manticores? That is a good question. They might have been manticores. I think they might have been manticores, because I'm thinking, yes, they definitely had a lion-like face. I don't think they would have been fighting 3 chimeras at that level. I think they might have been manticores. Oops. Well, anyway, we'll discover soon enough, because I have a picture of that battle map that I'll look at a bit later on. Or a different battle map, and you'll see why in a moment. They have a quick council about what they're going to do. And Ashbourne tells them what he saw and what Beta has had to do because of their actions, effectively. Because we went and gung-ho trying to sort out the Eversworn now made the Circle of Shepherds pay for our attack upon them. Because they did attack them first. That's the thing. They struck the first blow in that encounter, and they, oh, it's not right. We can't just turn our back. We have to go. So unfortunately, obviously understanding that, you know, he's effectively left him to fight Kieran on his own. It wasn't looking particularly good anyway. Beta the Panther was already fairly wounded at that time. They go back, and Ashbourne, as Ashbourne arrives, he sort of like falls to his knees, and he sees that indeed the giant panther has been slain. However, for reasons which I wish I had researched, there are certain abilities within the Druidic class, in 3.5 at least, which, in fact, I think it's a spell. Let me just double check. I know this is gripping viewing for all of you, but I want to make sure I get it right, because it was great. That's right, they're level 4. Which means that Ashbourne has access to a certain spell. And he says, in fact, oh no, I wish I'd remembered that, because Ashbourne then remembers that Beta had said something along the lines of, when he was about to go, there will be another time, or there will be another time for us to meet, and there will be another time for us to discuss this. Basically, sort of saying, we'll meet again sometime. And he gives him like a knowing look. And Ashbourne then clocked onto that and started looking at what his new abilities are now that he's level 4. Not that he actually knows I'm level 4, but you know what I mean. He says to the rest of the Outlanders, we need to rest here. We need to stay here so I can access some druidic power that I have long learned and read about, and or not read about, but have heard the forest speak of. I don't know, whatever the druids do. Whatever druids do, and we will have a better frame of mind tomorrow. And the others are kind of like, okay, Ashbourne, if you say so. And they rest, and the next morning they find that Ashbourne is already awake, and he is preparing some kind of druidic ritual, because you know, something that he's heard tell about from his order, definitely not a cult. And it is then that he casts the level 4 spell, Reincarnation, which is quite insane for a level 4 character to be in possession of, I might add. But, you know, it's pretty cool, and it was pretty awesome for the story as well. With this spell, you bring back a dead creature into another body, provided that its death occurred no more than 1 week before the casting of the spell, and the subject's soul is free and willing to return. If the subject's soul is not willing to return, the spell does not work. Therefore, a subject that wants to return receives no saving throw. So effectively, yeah. it can come back in lots of different things. And there's a roll table, and I'll read off what those things are, because they said, well, we can bring Beta back, but he's not going to be a giant panther anymore. He's going to be something a bit more, well, not mundane, but just yeah, well, you'll see. If they roll a 1, Beta will come back as a bugbear. If they roll a 2 or a 13, he'll come back as a dwarf. If they roll a 14 or a 25, he'll come back as an elf. If he rolls a 26, he'll become a gnoll. If it's a 27 to a 38, it'll be a gnome. If it's a 39 to a 42, it'll be a goblin. If it's a 43 to a 52, it's a half elf, and so on with the numbers. I'm not going to keep saying the numbers, but basically, he could be a half orc, he could be a halfling, he could be a human, he could be a kobold, he could be a lizard folk, he could be an orc, a troglodyte, or if you roll 100, he'll be an other ? And with that, I asked Dom, who plays Ashbourne, to roll, and he rolled 100. And we were like, that's amazing. An other. We're like, well, in that case, should we let's try and decide what he'll be. And I couldn't think of what it could be, so I brought up another table, which I think I have still in my notes. Here we are. Random animal table. Your guide to spirit animals in D&D. Hopefully this works still. Always a redirect notice. Here we are. A D100 list of animals. And I asked them to roll twice, and then Ashbourne could choose whichever one it would be. So he did. And the first one he rolled was a giant snail. Which is pretty funny, because you can imagine Beta's reaction when he's like devoted himself to like making sure that his body like maintains wild shape. He's like permanently wild shaped into a giant black panther for a reason, and that reason is because he thinks that's cool. And he has an affinity with that kind of animal. So then to learn that you have been resurrected, but in the form of an invertebrate that has to carry your house on your back, I mean, Ashbourne was like, I don't know if I I don't know if I should choose the giant snail. And the other two were absolutely loving it. Naturally, they thought it was hilarious. Yeah, bring him back to life, but at a cost that you're going to literally move a foot a day. Not quite so exaggerated, but you know what I mean. He'll be really, really slow. A giant snail. And they said, that's quite cool. It's quite magic. Like, he can have like cool patterns on his shell and stuff. And I said, well, it's up to you. Roll again, and you can decide which one you'd rather him be. And they rolled again, and the next one they rolled was a celestial lion. So, giant snail, celestial lion. Which would you prefer? Obviously, the other two really, they pushed harder for the giant snail, because they were like, oh, it'll be so funny for him to be a giant snail, and then for you to tell him that the other option was a celestial lion, which is kind of in the same demographic as a panther. It's a big cat, you know, he's a bit glowy and blue, and a lion, but effectively part of the same family, you know. It's a celestial lion, that's cool. But the other two were like, giant snail. And Ashbourne said, but it's not up to you, is it? And he chose Celestial Lion. And I was like, all right, fair enough. That's fair. Good. All right, there you go. Celestial Lion it is. Because a giant snail, you know, questionable how helpful a giant snail will be in their upcoming adventures. Who knows? It could be like a spell tank. That's how I imagine. If they had chosen giant snail, he would have just become like a druidic spell tank that just sits in the middle of battlefields and just rains hell with entangle and all other kinds of druidic nasties. Yeah, Beta was returned to them, and he looked upon Ashbourne with sort of like a renewed kinship, And he says, you have done what many thought to be impossible. Not every druid can do that. Not every druid can get to level 4. No, I didn't mean it. You know, it was sort of a big deal. You're like, you literally returned me to life. That's pretty crazy. And the other two were sort of in Carlos and Oldham were fairly in awe of him being able to do that. And discussions were had of what the next steps would be. And Beta said, well, the advantage is, and he's sort of this glorious celestial lion now. He has this epic blue gleaming mane and this sweeping blue fur, and he's got gleaming white eyes. He just looks like Aslan on mushrooms. he looks incredible. And yeah, he says, well, the advantage that we have is that Nakurian believes that I am dead. And he kind of does a bit of an Aslan, to be honest. Like, it is a bit of an Aslan, really, isn't there? There was even a big stone on which he had been slain upon. So, yeah, he went all Aslan on them. But came back blue. Anyway, let's go back to the notes, because I am fishing for where we go next. So, yeah, they have, like, a big talk, and they talk about their intentions in Vayrilian. They talk more about what their next steps are. Alden admits to them all that he really, really wants to reforge Urgamax. Every now and then he's been hearing whispers in his ears, the same voice that spoke to him when he first took up the remnant blade of Urgamax. That whispering is like returned to him every now and then, stating, reforge the blade, remake what is yours. But he doesn't share that information, obviously. But he says, I wish to remake the blade. And Beta says, well, I don't really know much about swords, but I do know of a master swordsman who dwells in a place known as Ashunonai. And they're like, oh, wow. And if we look on the map, which I shall bring up once again, the map of Vayrilian, let's bring that in front of the overlay, shall we, so we can see all of it, because it's right in the bottom corner. There we are. Ashunonai you may spot in the bottom right-hand corner of the map of Vayrilian. And it has a kind of Karatur vibe to it. For those who might remember from a previous stream, I explained very briefly that Karatur is the Oriental Adventures setting of Dungeons and Dragons, from which the samurai and some of the monks and things like that hail from. That's the land that they come from, Karatur. And Ashunonai has quite a lot of reference, you know, it's kind of similar. And Carlos understands the language. He understands like the name, and he says that is the name of a kind of dojo. It's, well, they speak of a master swordsman who resides there. Perhaps that will be of interest to you, Carlos, because you will meet someone who's perhaps worthy to cross blades with you. And Alden, I can't think of anyone more of any place that is better to start talking about remaking a sword than the home of a master swordsman. Perhaps he'll have some information for you. They were fantastic. Well, at some point we will do our best to get to Ashunonai. But they have other business to take care of. They decide, and this is another thing, they remember that they have a map that they had retrieved from Skycleave, which noted a place on them. They looked at the map and they could see that it was a place called the Shrine of Sullivan, which, if we look at the map once again, unfortunately the marker isn't there anymore. I did have an annotated version of this map. I shall see if I can find it. This is the bare one that they received, because I wanted them to sort of fill it in. I wanted them to leave the markers themselves, because it felt like, you know, they were marking down their discoveries. Seeing as this is a new world, it wouldn't make sense for it to be well mapped. Anyway, all that to say is, there is a great river that leads from Magma Valva itself through the Ayala south to landfall. Sort of in the middle of where that river flows down the landscape, there was a spot, and that is marked upon this map, and that is where this place called the Shrine of Solothon is. And they remember the name Solothon. Solothon was the name of the Lord of Summer, who had been usurped by Nakirian, who then sort of enforced his rule of autumn upon the Court of Seasons. And they well, that's interesting. Perhaps there's information that we can find about. If we know more about the Eladrin, then perhaps there's something we can do to broker some kind of peace. Perhaps they're still not on board with helping the Dominion, but they do understand that there are a lot of people in the settlements of the Dominion that are just filled with just people, just normal people. They don't have any kind of evil machinations. They're not. They're just here just to make a living. They're just here to survive, trying to survive, and it's because of the Dominion's stubbornness or unwillingness to cooperate or to speak with the Eladrin that this mess has begun in the first place. All a big mess. So they decide that they're going to do this for the people that dwell within these lands who are not affiliated with great orders or great empires or things. They're going to do it for them, and they're going to do it for the people who deserve it. So let's find out a bit more about the Eladrin. Let's head to the Shrine of Solothon. Upon their journey, they bid Beda farewell. They will meet with him again. He is going to start searching for the remaining members of the Circle of Shepherds and you reunite them, hopefully to oppose Nakirian in some way. Off they go in search of the Shrine of Solothon. I wish I had brought this map up, but effectively I'm not going to, because it'll take ages to crop it and then bring it in. I'll perhaps put it on another stream. They come across this dungeon, and it is a fairly short one. They notice as they enter that there is quite a lot of it's like a river cave almost, and they have to trudge through sort of like knee-high level water for a moment. Upon entering, it's almost like they can hear singing echoing around the forest. This is the first time that they've delved into the Ainalar properly, and this is a Fey inhabited forest full of tricks and mysticism. They hear like singing as they enter this cave, and it's very peculiar. And as they're like trudging their way through this water, they see that they're kicking up algae, this weird luminescent green algae that's floating to the surface of the water as they trudge through it, and they make a note of that. That's not particularly good. Alden sort of is the person scouting forth, as he is the most like the rogue, effectively, like scanning for traps, scanning for anything they might run into. And as he steps onto the bank into this opening in the cave, he steps on like this sort of like this algae that turns out to be like these mushrooms that grow all over the floor, and these spores erupt into the air, and they think, oh, we've got to be careful here. We've got to be very careful here. We don't know what those things do. So they carefully navigate around these big patches of mushrooms that are kind of, they bioluminescent mushrooms that gleam green and sort of cast a sinister hue throughout the cave as they sort of delve into the darkness. And it is in there that they discover just this big chamber. And they don't see anything of a shrine in here whatsoever. They see this giant sort of sinkhole, and at the bottom of it, just this almost stagnant pool of water. The water that pours in here from the river basically just becomes infected and stagnated by this algae. It's just gross. It's not very nice. And as they peer closer, they see that there's almost like a seam between one cave wall and the next. And I asked them to do a check, to which they're able to succeed. They succeed on a disbelieve check, and they are able to perceive past, or rather learn there's an illusion in their way. Something has been intentionally hidden within this cave. And Ashbourne, the druid, begins sort of like casting like detect magic and stuff, and he's using the power of nature to try and unmake this arcane illusion. And eventually they break it away, and they reveal that this cave actually like runs into constructed stone, and they recognize the architecture. It's the same kind of architecture that they've seen in the catacombs of Landfall. It is ancient Elandrin, of an ancient Elandrin make, and they see that there is indeed a shrine that has been obscured in this place. And they walk through and they discover these treasures. They discover journals of a raving madman, someone who has lost everything and has been cast in exile out into this place, into the land that he had once sworn to protect. And they learn that a mad Solothon, usurped and defeated and laid low by Nakirian, had been cast out into Vayrilian itself, the very land he had meant to protect, and had found home here. Long gone, he had moved on, but this was a place that he had lived for some time, cursing the name of Nakirian, and laying out a good deal of what he suspects Nakirian is wanting to do. He speaks of an autumn never ending. He speaks of an eternal state of decay, whereby autumn would never pass. It would always seem like it would always be the nature that is just continually wilting away, almost into a form of undeath. Autumn just continuing to drain, never halting for winter. Doesn't sound particularly nice. This forever autumn, this just eternal state of decay. They go, wow, is this true? Because we know that Solothon wasn't. We've heard that Solothon wasn't a particularly a good ruler, but he's been replaced by someone worse, seemingly much worse. So what are we going to do about that? They sort of like, well, we're going to have to keep that in mind, that there's this eternal state of decay that Nakirian seemingly wants to have fall upon the land of Vayrilian. It's then that they realise that the water of the sinkhole is tremoring and moving, just like the cup of water in Jurassic Park, just like my can of BrewDog, which is shaking. It's not shaking, but you know what I mean. That tremor. I'll go back to my notes very quickly. Yes, that pool of stagnant water is shaking, and then all of a sudden there is an eruption of putrid green water as a terrifying sight erupts from the water, and a cursed aberration now confronts them. It was an aboleth all along. An aboleth, well, those of you familiar with D&D probably know what an aboleth is, but let's Google an aboleth. Let's read exactly what an aboleth can do for those who are a bit rusty, perhaps, or a bit hazy. Aboleth 3.5, because remember, this is a 3.5 game, so I imagine they might be slightly different, probably more lethal. The aboleth is a revolting, fish-like amphibian found primarily in subterranean lakes and rivers. An aboleth has a pink belly, 4 pulsating blue-black orifices lining the bottom of its body and secrete grey slime that smells like rancid grease. It uses its tail for propulsion in the water and drags itself along with its tentacles on land. An aboleth weighs about 6,500 pounds. So this awful creature erupts out of the water, and you can see where Solothon has derived the power of illusion to hide this shrine in the first place. He has seemingly imprisoned an aboleth to harness its illusionary powers to hide his place where he hides. But the aboleth is long broken free, and this creature 3 times a day can attempt to enslave any one living creature. The target must succeed in a DC 17 will save or be affected as though by Dominate Person spell. So that enslaved creature then obeys the aboleth's telekinetic commands. It naturally, immediately attempts to enslave Carlas Ungolider, the deadliest swordsman in the land, or one of the deadliest swordsmen in the land. So there's this awful battle between the aboleth and the Outlanders. Carlas does attack his friends, but his friends keep moving out of the way and basically getting away from him before he's able to deliver any meaningful attacks upon him. And the aboleth decides that perhaps it's time for Carlas to take a little swim. So instead, he orders the aboleth orders Carlas just to jump into the sinkhole, into the water, and he just falls into the water and disappears beneath the green gooey substance that lines the lake. Pardon me. This thing is also a psionic creature. It can create illusionary walls. It can create mirages, like a bunch of images of slimes appear around them. But the other thing is, it can also call in allies that are real slimes. So there are illusionary slimes surrounding you and real slimes surrounding you. So not only are you having to contend with illusions that perplex you, some of them can hurt you, some of them are there just to trick you. And all the while, the aboleth is like firing slime at you, and it also can like have a mucus cloud erupt from its gills and stuff. It's terrifying, and it is just an awful thing to fight. It really is dreadful. Aboleths are more than capable of just ending a party there and then, and it came really close. Carlas Ungolider, while a very, very proficient warrior, is useless if he's not able to fight. He was in the water, spluttering around, and he's able to save on each of his turns, or at least attempt to make a save on each of his turns, but he completely fails on a whole bunch of them, and he's just spluttering in the water, like drowning, effectively. Until eventually he breaks free, but then what's he going to do? He's at the bottom of this sinkhole with this awful creature circling around him, like a terrifying mutant shark almost, circling him as he's desperately trying to swim to land. Ashbourne and Alden are doing their best to fight their way through the slime, and eventually they're able to overcome them and then begin targeting the aboleth itself. There is a tremendous struggle. Ashbourne is able to summon in like Nature's Ally. I can't remember what he summoned in, actually. That's an interesting question. I wonder. For the fun of it, just because we're looking stuff up, let's see what Summon Nature Ally. I wonder what level he'd have to be. Probably 4, right? Summon Nature's Ally 4. Let's see what he's able to bring in at this point. So he could bring in a shark or that's right. He would bring in a big snake at this point, because that snake will show up a bit later, I assure you. He also brought, that's right, a crocodile. He brought a giant crocodile in as well. That's the funny thing about druids. They can just drop all sorts of different animals into fights, and it is rather hilarious. But anyway, with a giant crocodile or a giant snake, I can't remember which, battling the aboleth, they were able to sort of turn the tables and start laying down some attacks upon it themselves. And eventually, after a tremendous struggle, after all of them are nearly killed, it is a close one, they're able to defeat the beast. So they've learned some information about Nakirian and his potential plans, but it was at the cost of them all nearly dying. So staggering from this place, they decide that they're going to rest for the evening. And they do, and they hear a fell singing once again. Well, not a fell singing, an eerie singing. It's probably fell, but an eerie singing echoing through the forest as they rest for the night. And it is upon their day they decide that from this point they're going to travel from here. And I think I'm right in saying they decide to do an about turn and go to the. Let's see. At least making headway towards the Ashinonai. That's what I'm trying to say. My. I'm trying to bring up the map, but there it is. I lost it. So they're going from where that river comes from, Magma Valva, and then they're going to... They basically cut through the shade and try and get past Skycleave. And they decide they're going to visit that tower that's between the Circle of Shepherds and Ashinonai. Sort of like a red tower there. Or red-roofed tower. But on the way, they well, they encounter something that they wish they had not encountered. It is one of their days' travel. They are getting towards the border of the forest, and they're being like hounded, almost hounded by this singing, almost like it's trying to draw them deeper into the forest. Yet, whatever checks that I throw against them, they are able to make, and they're quite vigilant, and they get out of the forest. But are sort of on the outskirts. I ask them to do a spot check, of which unfortunately they fail. Alden Remelstein does not see his nemesis hurtling down from above. They've stumbled into this clearing, and they see that there's sort of like a rocky kind of rocky escarpment almost that leads to kind of like a pit. And in that pit there appears to be all kinds of shining bits of wealth and things, but it all appears to be on fire. And as I said, Alden does not spot his nemesis, because that's right, the Manticore, and I think it is a Manticore. I think that's a Manticore, looking at it. Pretty sure. I don't see the other heads. A flame-infused Manticore sweeps down after Alden Remelstein. Alden sees that a shard of the spell storing ring got stuck in the Manticore's head, meaning that the great beast wasn't slain, but was actually infused with the spell storing of the last spell that was put into the ring, and that was a fireball. So the Outlanders now have to contend with a terrifying flame-infused Manticore, which now has a burning nest of treasures. And they have this epic battle, this epic round 2 with the Manticore. I kind of like the idea that, like, if something's escaped from them in battle, like, I'd like an idea for them to, like, get even with it at a later date, which they absolutely were able to in this case. They basically battled this flame-infused Manticore, this thing stuck in its head, keeping it basically alive and keeping it continually erupting into fireballs. This thing pounces on Alden and just explodes. Explodes with flame. And another deathly battle, and it's drawn more Manticores. It is definitely Manticores, not Chimeras. Manticores to its side, and it is an insane battle. And again, another battle where they came close to not making it. But as you can see, I'll bring the battle map back up. Unfortunately, one of those that thing happened again where I deleted some of the assets from Roll20, so it looks a bit bare bones and basic. But you get the sort of picture. There's that pit with the flaming pit in the middle of it, rather, or the flaming nest in the middle of it, rather. And yes, you can see that there's a giant viper, giant viper that Ashbourne had decided to summon into this battle. And they beat it back. They beat the Manticore back and finally slew it. I don't know. It lay slain. They defeated it, and Alden was able to retrieve the shard of the spell storing ring, and was able to sort of piece it back together. And they were able to get some loot from that. They were able to find some stuff that the Manticores had been taking from various places and storing almost like a big winged lion magpies. That was a little offshoot that they discovered. Little encounter they ran into. And then where did they go? That's right, they then continued on to the tower. As you can see, there is a tower there. And a good couple of days journey. I think they ran into a few other encounters, but I don't remember what they were. Basically, this place is infested with encounters. Like it's fairly dangerous territory, and they run into lots of different wild animals and beasts. They also, that's the other thing I should mention. They also noticed that the wild and dangerous animals and creatures of the forest all appear to be, you know, it's almost like they're kind of like urged into attacking humanity and the settlements of Varillium, as if like they're serving the power of the Eladrin, the power of nature that resides here. That was lovely. Right, so let's look at the map. Yep, so they're heading towards that tower, and I think that's a neat little place to go to before they reach Ashununai. And they see this tower, and as they arrive, they see that this tower is surrounded by, I say surrounded, it is flanked by 4 heavily armed looking individuals who kind of approach and square up to them. And they, as they arrive, I think Alden would have said something along the lines of, hello, and something along the lines of hello. Yes, that's, yeah, great player dialogue there. No, he said hello, and they said something along the lines of, what is your purpose here? Like, why have you come here from the wilderness to this place? We seek shelter, they said, sort of half true. We were sort of interested about this tower. And this tower does look a bit out of the ordinary. It looks like it doesn't belong here. And it isn't constructed from ancient elven ruins or anything. This is just a straight up random tower in the middle of nowhere. And they said, well, we're just here investigating. Whose tower is that? And one of the armed men says, he's our benefactor, the man who pays us. Who is that? My name is Sodbury. A voice comes from behind the armed individuals. And one of my favourite NPCs of all time emerges onto the field of play. That is right, dear listener, dear viewers, you did hear correctly. The individual that introduced himself to them is called Sodbury. And there is Sodbury on the screen now. That is a picture of Sodbury that I drew because this is the grumpiest, smelliest, alcohol-dependent wizard you will ever likely meet. And Sodbury shoos away the armed mercenaries and says, "What blazes brings you this far out?" And they sort of explain, and Sodbury explains that he is a scholar or rather a former scholar of the Academy, and he has recently set up vigil here in this tower of his own creation. And they realise, oh, well, that's why it seems out of the ordinary. Sodbury has some kind of spell to create shelter, like a summon. What is it called? Wow, I can't remember the name of the spell. If anyone is listening at this point, if you can remember the spell that summons shelter, something's modest shack, or something's keep, or something, you tell me. If you know, tell me, because I can't remember what it is. And you can also tell me, when playing D&D, do you use those spells to to create shelter in the wilderness? I always find it quite funny that you just like can make structures, make them permanent, and then sell them for real estate or something. Anyway, all that to say, Sudbury is, like I say, a former student of the academy, and he actually speaks to them about a place called the Tower of Echoes. At least it was, yeah, it was called the Tower of Echoes. Yes, he tells them about the Tower of Echoes, and he has set up shop here because he is hoping to conduct research about this place. And they ask, well, what's so special about the Tower of Echoes? What would draw the interest of a wizard such as you? And Sudbury explains that he knows that the Tower of Echoes is a conduit on the material plane between the Feywild and the Shadowfell. Now, as we sort of learned on a stream or two back, the land of Aurelian is effectively the bridge of the material plane that bridges the Feywild and the Shadowfell. And Sudbury explains that this is a particularly weak point, and while you can't access either the Feywild or the Shadowfell there are echoes of both of those planes, sort of geography almost, within the Tower of Echoes. It's sort of like this magical place that sort of like projects instances of the Feywild and the Shadowfell. And he basically start like talking back and forth about the various benefits of learning more about the Feywild and the Shadowfell. And they explain to Sudbury all about Nakirian, and they explain to him everything. They don't notice this. I ask them to check, and they fail. They don't notice that Sudbury seems to already know a great deal about Nakirian and what he's up to. Almost to the point of insider information. But they don't know that yet. But just to let you guys know that I'm sort of like rubbing my hands because they don't know that Sudbury has had dealings and has dealings with Nakirian. But he listens with interest. Oh, really? As they explain about their interactions with the Lord of the Eladrin. And they tell him everything. they suddenly seem to trust this wizard, and they do seem to enjoy him. He's he's a bit bumbling, but he's very to the point, very grumpy as well. Very grumpy wizard, as you can tell. He looks pretty grumpy. But he says, yeah, as well, you can. I can't remember what he said exactly, but he's along the lines of he would like the threats within the Hall of Echoes neutralised, so he, as a scholar, can go and make his own investigations in peace. They said, well, what do you mean neutralising? He says, well, the instances of the Feywild and the Shadowfell include echoes of the inhabitants of each realm. Inside you will find Eladrin. Inside you will find echoes of the Shadar Kai, the elves that are still in service to the mad ravings of the Raven Queen. Ravings of the Raven Queen. Oh wow, there is both Eladrin and Shadar Kai in there, and we have to fight them. And he's like, not necessarily fight them, but just find a way to neutralize them. I want that place to be safe for me to investigate. At least report to me what you find there, at the very least, and you will be handsomely rewarded. I have some scrolls for you to take in the meantime, and it will help you. And he offers them some scrolls. Apparently, he gave them create food and water, speak with death, and purge invisibility. Wow, there you go. He also shares with them some Visionary's Root, which is a long time narcotic route within the main realm setting. Visionary's route effectively is, what it says on the tin, it's this red root that you effectively like chew upon, and it comes from sort of like fey-like forests, and you chew upon it, and some visionaries argue that when you do, you can see the future. Whatever you see in sort of like this this trip that you go into, or this experience that you have, like you fall into this meditative kind of state and you see visions. Now, most people dismiss this as just the ravings of lunatics and addicts, because the thing is, it is an incredibly addictive substance. The ability to see the future. People have been driven mad, wishing to see if there is fortune that lies in wait for them, waiting to see if their loved ones will return home from war, hoping to see, God forbid, when the time will come when they will meet their demise, and if there is a way that they can avoid that. People have been driven mad by all of these, but some maintain that the Visionary's route does show you the genuine future. When in the game, to make it an actual thing to enjoy in the actual setting of a game, when you chew Visionary's route, you actually roll to see if you actually see something of significance. And Carlas takes a little bit and decides he's going to try that sometime, but not when they're on the job, because Carlas is nothing but a professional. But in the meantime, they agree to Sodbury's demands, and they said, "Well, absolutely. We're just hoping to sort of accrue knowledge and accrue power." At this point, they effectively decided they're going to be guns for hire for a little bit. They're just going to go and explore and accrue power, because they know they're not really going to be able to battle the forces of the Eladrin the way they are, not since their last battle. And as they just had their asses handed to them by an aboleth and an exploding manticore, they need to be better than that. So anyway, yeah, they want to be better equipped, they want to earn some money, so they agree to a sum, and they agree to Sodbury's demands. Sodbury hands him a key. And he says, there is one other thing that I have yet to impart to you. It is something that I've been looking for some time. But I will tell you about that before you leave. For the moment, you can stay at this site. And they say, "Well, that's an odd way to explain it. Do you mean we can stay in the tower?" And he says, "No, you can't stay in the tower. I don't know you at all. You can stay outside, and I'll lock the door. You can stay with the mercenaries." They're like, "Oh, okay, fair enough." Yeah, Sodbury just doesn't. He said, "Well, I don't know you from anyone. You could rob me in the middle of the night." No. So they go outside, and he locks the door. He says, "But do let me know before you leave, because I have further information for you and something to give to you, but I need to do my final bits of research. So you can stay here." And this is basically an excuse for them to stay here for the night, so they can chill and have a bit of downtime, because they haven't had a bit of downtime for a while. So they have the evening to chill. They decide that they talk to the mercenaries for a bit. The mercenaries aren't particularly friendly. They don't like them very much, so they decide they're just going to keep themselves to themselves. they awkwardly make their own camp just a few paces from theirs. So they're each they got two fires going, looking over enviously at what drink the other has and what food the others have and stuff. And they rest, and that is when Carla Sunglider decides that it would be fun to chew upon some Visionary's route, and he rolls, and I tell him what he sees, and I don't. This is the thing about Visionary's route, because half of the fun is that you don't know whether what you've seen is the truth, but I do, because I know what the number is that he has to roll. And I won't say whether he did succeed or not, but what he did see is he saw a mountain aflame. He saw himself standing upon a great standing in a great valley, looking up at a great mountain that appears to be ablaze, and all around him snow is falling. And then he looks to his side, and he sees facing him down is a terrifying foe in black armor that approaches, wielding a blade very similar to his own. And yeah, as the snow falls, he sort of like awakens, and it's like the ash of the campfire as it is blown in the morning wind. It is a grey day, and Sodbury is already there, tramping down the stairs towards him. Well, I hope you slept well. I hope you've got your energy, because you're going to need it. You've got a long way to go. He hands them a key, and he says that this is the key that will allow them entry into the Hall of Echoes. He explains that he's been there once before and used magic to seal the entrance so no one else could go in before him, effectively. And like, oh, okay, well, yeah, fair enough, I suppose. So they pocket the key, and he says, I am after one thing in particular, one thing that I have, I desire to look upon greatly, and what... And he says, inside the Hall of Echoes, there is a magical adornment. There is a crown that lies within. And they're like, we don't know, Sodbury. Your hat seems to suit you very well. Are you sure you want a crown? And it says it is for research purposes, of course. Do not mean to wear it. And he goes on to explain that this is something known as the Recaller, which is effectively a crown that has like hollows for like 3 pieces, 3 like gleaming. That's how to describe. Like imagine the Recaller is sort of like the frame of a crown, and then it has hollows for 3 gems, or want of a better word, that can go inside it. And he says, a crown of 3 pieces sustains the echoes of the Feywild and the Shadowfell. And the first part can be found within a tower of black iron. I'm reading that now. I'm not sure that's actually what happened. This is the thing. As I've explained on these streams before, I read these notes and sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure if that's true. No, they need to find the crown in the Tower of Echoes. That's what they need to do. There are 3 pieces that can go into the crown, but that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for the frame of the crown, effectively, what's called the Recaller. Anyway, all that to say, that is their mission. They've got to go into the Tower of Echoes, and they've got to get to the Recaller crown, because that's the thing that sustains the instances of the Feywild and the Shadowfell. So that's what they go and do. And it is upon the visions of the... let's see. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I will explain what they see when they get there. And that's where we'll leave it, I think. So, they journey for several days. I'll bring up the map one last time. I only do this... Oh, Sodbury's still in the way. Sorry, Sodbury. There we go. Oh. Come back, Sodbury. Something I should explain about Sodbury before we move on from him. And I will gauge interest about Sodbury. Because... so... every now and then there's a character that comes along that I just like. And I like to do some writing that isn't based in D&D. I like just to write fiction. And... one of the things that I have begun writing is a story about the wizard known as Sodbury. There was actually an exchange between Ashbourne the Druid and Sodbury, which I just thought... I didn't know the answer to the question, but I wanted to find out. Ashbourne said, Sodbury is a really terrible name. And Sodbury said something along the lines of, yes, but I choose to go by it, and you would too if you had my first name. Effectively, his first name is so bad that he goes by Sodbury, which is his second name. So, at least that's what he told them. Anyway, I just like this wizard, and if people are interested, I will come on a separate stream. Well, no, it's still a storytelling stream, so I will come on a storytelling stream, and I will read the first chapter of a story that I've written about Sodbury. You see, I'm looking at him there. Hi, Sodbury. I've written a chapter of a book about you. I've written more than a chapter of a book about him, but if you would like to hear the first chapter of the the Book of Sodbury, then I will be happy to do that. Let me know if there's any interest. If not, I won't. But if people would like to hear me do that, then I'd be more than happy to share it. We shall see. So, anyway, moving on. We leave Sodbury behind, but they are on a mission for Sodbury. We go back to the map, and they learn that the Tower of Echoes is that ruined tower which is north of Ashunonai. So they think, right, it's a little bit of a detour from Ashunonai, but we're getting close. So let's go to the Tower of Echoes, and then we will head to Ashunonai. And that is what they do. And upon arriving at the Tower of Echoes, they absolutely see, yes, it is a ruined structure. And this time it is the architecture, once again, architecture of the ancient elves here. And they find this magical door that has been erected at the foot of the tower that Sodbury has come along and left. So they use the key to open it and get inside, and they see this. Oh, I forgot to show you the Tower of Sodbury. The tower they're in comes back into the story, so I'll show you the Tower of Sodbury another time. The more I say Sodbury, the more we'll leave that behind for now. So, Hall of Echoes. Now, this is something that I did as a two-part dungeon, effectively. As they arrived, and it's hard to see there, but that's fine because I've got more zoomed in things from when we go into each of them. Let's see if I can fit that to screen. There we are. So the way that I did this, because I should explain, through Roll20 I've been using the Fog of War so I can hide bits of the map, obviously. But this is the full map devoid of that obscuring thing. So what they see first of all as they step into the tower is one of the circular tower bits in the top left corner. They go up the set of stairs and they discover that there is a plinth there, and unfortunately the assets that weren't there at the time, but you can see them on the other towers. There was a orange gate on one side and a purple gate on the other. And depending on which one they picked is which one they visited first. If they went through the orange gate, they would go to the Feywild first. If they went through the purple gate, they would go through to the Shadowfell first. And they chose the orange gate. So, we'll make that vanish. And they they go into the Hall of Echoes Feywild. So let's make this, expand this and make this one a bit bigger. So yeah, they come out of this tower and there's this winding path, and I like the idea of doing dungeons that aren't dungeons, effectively. Like, you just go into these vast battle maps where there are expansive areas which sort of make up the area of a dungeon, but, you know, you're not just going into a cave and, you know, the same old shtick. You're mixing it up a little bit. So this is the instance of the Feywild, and an illusionary echo of the Feywild, like a bubble universe almost, a bubble world in reality. And they wander around the forest for a bit, and that is where they come across a great table, and it is surrounded by Eladrin that are revelling. Now, something they've learned from their various insights into Eladrin so far is that the Eladrin are people that are greatly governed by emotion. In fact, because the Feywild is such an intense place, everything is up to 11. All passions are burn the brightest. All sorrow is the most grievous pain you could ever feel. You know, like, all emotions are incredibly heightened in this place. And in this echo of the Feywild, there is no difference. These Elandrin revelers are having the greatest time of their entire lives. They are having an absolute blast until they see the Outlanders arrive, until they see Ashbourne Briar, Carla Sangarida, and Alden Remelstein. And this interruption makes their faces transform from glee to anger that anyone would dare intrude in this most hallowed place. And that is where we're going to leave our heroes. I decided to do this stream today because I wasn't able to do it over the weekend. I will definitely put up a post next time I plan to do a stream. So yeah, I will be in touch. For those of you who have watched the stream, thank you ever so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. And for those who are watching after the fact as well, thank you very much as well. If you're watching it here on Twitch or later over on YouTube, thank you very much for dropping by. I always really appreciate it. Here's something that would be really great. First of all, let me know what that spell is. I mean, I'll probably look it up after the stream, but no, I'm not going to. If there are any spells that you use in your games to create shelter, or any techniques you use to create shelter in your games, let me know in the comments. Let's have a bit of back and forth. Tell me what either the spell is that you use or what methods you use to keep your party safe whilst travelling in the open world. There was something else as well that I was going to ask as well. Oh yes, and if you'd be interested in hearing the chapter 1 of the Book of Sodbury, or the Tale of Sodbury, I haven't decided what it's called yet, let me know. It's a little bit different to this, and it will be me just straight up reading the story, but it has a rather peculiar tone, rather interesting tone, and Sodbury isn't the nicest of wizards. And you soon learn that when he encounters people that he wouldn't expect to encounter. So yeah, if you would like to hear that, let me know. All that to say, thank you ever so much for watching, and I hope that all of your performances are up to standard. And I'm going to... See, the thing is, I do my clicky outro thing, and then I have to stop, pick up my mouse, scroll down, and go outro. Thanks for watching.